People see how much success we've had with our own pooper scooper business and just assume getting into the industry is going to be something that's easy and super achievable for everyone. And while it is easy and simple to understand, there are some harsh realities when it comes to getting into this business, or any business for that matter, that I'm going to touch on in today's video and help you be a little bit more prepared for growing your own dog waste removal business. Let's get into it. For those who don't know, my name is William. I'm the president of a 7-figure pooper scooper business in the Pacific Northwest and the founder of the Poop Scoop Millionaire community on School. When we first got into this industry, we had a ton of success right out of the gate. I think we had over 300 to 350 recurring customers within our first year. And a few years after that, we're now passing multi-million dollars in revenue. We have $200,000 plus months, literally going out and picking up dog poop. And I know a lot of people watch these videos. They hear other places around the internet about others that have had similar success in this industry. And they just assume it's going to be easy and that they can do it too. And while, yes, they can do it too, you can also grow a big pooper scooper business. It's not always going to be as easy as you think, even though the business is pretty simple. So I'm going to walk you guys through some of the biggest challenges that new business owners face. I'm going to walk you guys through some of the challenges of actually being a pooper scooper and performing the work. I'm also going to come up with some strategies that can help you overcome some of these hardships and make your path a little bit easier, kind of help set some better expectations for people just getting into the pooper scooper industry. So let's get into it. All right, so to begin with, I want to talk about a key difference, and that is that actually being a pooper scooper and performing the service of being a pooper scooper is easy. Not to diminish pooper scoopers out there, but it is an entry-level job. It is something many of us have been doing since we were kids for our own pets as we were growing up, opposed to actually starting a business and running a successful business, which can be very, very difficult. So a couple challenges, I guess we'll start on the pooper scooper side, that a lot of people are going to experience is it's a pretty repetitive job. You're just going to be going from yard to yard to yard, doing the same thing on a daily basis, which is good for some people. You can just plug in the headphones, jam out, listen to music, listen to podcasts, which is great. But for others, if you're out there just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, you might not be a big fan of that kind of a job. But at the end of the day, the goal is not to have a job, it's to have a business. The other thing on kind of the pooper scooper side, some of the common complaints that I hear, probably the most common, is people, if they don't have the right equipment or they don't do things ergonomically, they don't flip the handles on their buckets, they can experience some wrist pain, and kind of overcoming some of that discomfort when you're first getting started is going to be something that a lot of people have to overcome. And then kind of the final thing that makes the job difficult is that we do go out in all types of weather, whether it's really hot, whether it's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's snowy. At least for our company, we're going out in most weather conditions unless it's actually unsafe. So you really need to be comfortable with working outdoors, working alone, and working with dogs in some cases as well. So now let's switch gears and look at the business owner side. I wrote down a couple notes here kind of from my experience starting our pooper scooper business and some of the hardest parts kind of that journey. And the first one is going to be dealing with uncertainty. When we got in the industry a couple years ago, it really wasn't that well known of a thing. And honestly, I don't think it is still that well known of a business. And not knowing what to expect, not knowing what customer demand is going to be, looking at Google search volumes and seeing that nobody's looking for the service to click on ads, like all those things just fuel uncertainty, and you don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. When you're first getting into the industry, you don't know how to price things out right, you don't know how to route, you don't know how to schedule, you don't know how to bill your customers. There's so many things that go into actually putting a business together that's more than actually fulfilling the service of scooping poop, which you need to make sure all that is shored up as well, where you're having good customer service, you have the right phone scripts, your technicians say the right things to the customers, you're walking the yard in an efficient way, you're taking gate photos, you're using disinfectant. There's so many little details that go into the business. And if you don't know what you're doing, and if you haven't been there before, it could lead to a lot of uncertainty if you're doing the right things or if you're making some big mistakes. That's a big reason why we started this YouTube channel, to help other people avoid some of those mistakes and some of that uncertainty that we had when we were first getting started in the industry. And that's another reason why we also came up with some resources like the Poop Scoop Millionaire, so you can actually go network and communicate with other people that have been through that same uncertainty. They got through it and came out the other side with 100, 200, 500, 1,000 clients and a successful business that's able to support their family, help them leave their job, and really have a better lifestyle overall. So great place to go, network with people. Next thing on my list that I'll talk about is going to be working long hours. you don't have a boss anymore. You're now the boss. Your customers are your boss. You now have hundreds of, I guess, mini bosses, if you want to call it, and you're responsible for making sure that everybody gets taken care of. And sometimes that means working longer hours. So when we first got started, I really didn't work full time in the business actually until pretty much this year. Levi did the brunt of the scooping, handling the customer calls. I was mostly handling the strategy, the marketing, coming up with some funds to get the business going. But I remember at one point, Levi was putting in some major hours. I think he worked over 100 days in a row. And we're not talking like short days. We're talking like 12 to 16-hour days, just grinding day after day, doing the routes, and also answering all the calls. I think he answered all the calls until we got to 900 customers while still scooping a full route. It was like absolutely insane. He deserves everything he has and more. So, while it might not be that crazy for everybody, that was the kind of effort and hours that we had to put in, which, yeah, it might be simple, but that certainly was not easy. And even now, I'm starting to put in a lot more time into the business as we're trying to scale to 8 figures and beyond. I'm working from 8 to 5, and then I'll hang out with my kids for a couple hours, then I'll work from 8 to midnight most nights, including the weekends. I'll work till midnight most weekends as well. So it does take a lot of time if you're wanting to build a big, scalable, successful business. You don't have to go that crazy, but you just got to make sure that you're able to put in the time, and that can be something that's really hard to do, especially if you have other obligations, you have a family, maybe you have another job right now, and you're doing this as a side hustle. And balancing all of those things with your personal life can be really difficult to do. So the next thing that's really hard about starting a pooper scooper business, or really any business, is that you're going to be taking on all the risk and all the responsibility. No matter what happens, ultimately, you're the one that's responsible at the end of the day. You have an employee that messes up. You have an employee that crashes a car. You have an employee that lets somebody dog out. Something happens. The buck stops with you. You're the business owner. You need to be responsible for it, and it's your job to fix that. And you don't always have somebody that you can go to and ask for help. You have to be able to figure these things out on your own with the resources that are available to you. And that can be really difficult. The other side of that is you're also having to take on all the risk yourself. A lot of people go into business and they end up leaving their job, and if it doesn't work out, they don't have an income anymore, which is actually a reason that I do really like the pooper scooper industry, because there's a lot of flexibility. So if people want to ease into it on the weekends or afternoon, that is really easy to do. But there are others that just fully dive in and they're taking on that risk, and that can be something that's really difficult to manage if you don't have the stomach for that kind of stress. The other thing when it comes to risk is if you're wanting to grow fast, you're going to have to purchase vehicles, you're going to have capital expenses, and if you don't have a ton of cash laying around, you are going to have to take out loans to buy a lot of those things if you want to continue growing to meet the demand. At least that's what happened for us. And I remember when we first started, I think we had like 7 or 8 like personal truck loans before we can refinance and get a proper SBA business loan. That was a lot of personal risk that we took on if something would have went wrong. So, of course, the pooper scooper industry is great because most of that revenue is recurring revenue. We still have the trucks. We could have sold them and recouped a lot of the money. But that is still a big risk that business owners take on, and something that people don't always think about when they are getting into business, whether it's a pooper scooper business or any business for that matter. So as I mentioned, as a business owner, you are responsible for your business and everything that business actually does. And one of the scariest things that can happen to you as a business owner is if your marketing is not working and you're actually not able to acquire paying customers. So without customers, you don't have any cash flow, and without cash flow, you do not have a business. So I actually made a full guide on what to do if your marketing is not working. It's going to cover things like, are you putting in enough volume? Do you have the right offers? And many other tips and tricks. I'm going to include it right here on YouTube, 100% for free. So go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day and happy scooping.